There are the tried and true X-Men teams and rosters, and then there's everyone else. With so many X-Men comics constantly ongoing though, I'm hoping some listed here can get some more love. This X-Men roster we're about to talk about marked the return of Chris Claremont to the X-Men in a full-time capacity. Extreme X-Men Volume 1 is a series that started in 2001 and ran till 2004. It was a team that featured my girl Rogue as leader. You know I'm all about Rogue. The original Extreme X-Men roster also featured Beast, Psylocke, Bishop, Storm, Sage, and Thunderbird on the team. Lifeguard, Gambit, and Slipstream were also added to the mix throughout. Honestly, I love Lifeguard and I don't think she gets enough love. This team was originally brought together to find Destiny's premonition-filled diaries, but of course along the way was distracted by many other imminent threats. As you do. The Great Ring of Arakko is exclusively made up of Omega level mutants, which really tells you how much of a powerhouse team they would be. They are the ruling body of Arakko, which is the sister mutant island nation to Krakoa, which of course eventually goes on to become Mars, and yeah, we've had a whole adventure with them. In fact, Arakko and Krakoa are actually less siblings and are more romantically tied in terms of the islands themselves. They're both sentient mutant islands, and for a long time they were attached to one another and also kind of in love, although now they prefer to be separate. They tried to be reunited after Arakko was liberated, but then they just weren't feeling it at that time. You know how it is. Arakko's ruling government has 4 distinct sections which govern different parts of their civilization, with some areas having more power at given times. For example, in war times, Dawn is the area that typically gets more say, as this is the area that would rule and govern during that time. For years, the Iraqi were at war with the men, so this would have been a very prominent section for many years in their history. And it's something that the mutants of Arakko struggle with releasing themselves from, the obligation to always be on guard and always be at war. While Uranos faced off with the Great Ring of Arakko and pretty much cleaned their clock, pretty recently actually, this should not make us undermine their strength, as Uranos is basically on a whole other level by himself as one of the most powerful, ruthless, and evil Eternals that we've ever seen in comics, so yeah. Not all teams on my list here are going to be the good guys when it comes to our X-Men rosters, and this is one of those teams. It was simply too good for me to not include. In the Fantastic Extreme X-Men, this is a team of villains from alternate realities, and even perhaps the main reality that our multiversal X-Men team, led by Earth 616's Dazzler, must face. The 10 evil Xaviers features one that is a cowboy, another that is a Cthulhu-like floating brain, and one that is a giant Akanti whale, and so many more amazing weird alternates of the X-Men's leader and mentor, Charles Xavier, aka Professor X. This one is from the 2010 series Generation Hope and was under Cyclops' banner, ultimately following the events of Regenesis. Though the team itself was led by mutant Messiah Hope Summers, and its roster consisted of No Girl, Pixie, Primal, Sebastian Shaw, Transonic, Velocidad, and Zero at that time. Though originally Hope's team started pre-Regenesis as just being 5 mutants, including Hope herself as one of those 5, with Velocidad, Oya, Primal, and Transonic on the team. The team was sort of brought together as a search and rescue group who were acknowledged as the 4 of the 5 lights of Cerebra. Hope basically triggered the rebirth of the mutant gene, activating these mutants, and the 5th light was what they sought and why they basically came together, heading to Tokyo, Japan to find out this 5th light. Zero was the mutant they sought, who would of course eventually join the team. While everyone might focus on the battle of the Atom Future Brotherhood team, as Raze has, a tendency to steal the show, we all love Raze, plus my girl Zoran Jean, and also featuring Molly Hayes, people tend to forget about the awesomeness that was the Future X-Men team as well, the real Future X-Men. This team featured a much more skilled Iceman, who now was known as Ice Wizard, Wiccan, who had become Sorcerer Supreme at this point, Chimera, who is believed to be Storm's daughter that she had with Black Panther, Shogo, Jubilee's son, known as Sentinel X, Colossus armed with Magic's Soul Sword, Kid Omega as Phoenix, and Jubilee as Wolverine. I kinda love all of this. Jubilee as Wolverine's a little weird, but I'm still kinda into it. Because yeah, Jube's following in Wolverine's footsteps is super cute. The Dark X-Men are what we get when Norman Osborn is basically put in charge of all the super teams you can imagine. And yes, as I said, not everyone on my list is going to be a good X-Men team, because that's not as much fun. I love a little bit of evil sprinkled in. Now this team came out of the Dark Reign period over at Marvel Comics. Norman ended up becoming the world's greatest hero, at least in civilians and the government's eyes, after he successfully shot and killed Skrull Queen Varanki, in essence ending Secret Wars and in a weird twist saving the day. Not what you'd expect from Norman, but there we were. As a reward, he was given the task of creating a new organization to take over for the disbanded S.H.I.E.L.D. Norman created Hammer in response and made his own teams of both Dark Avengers and Dark X-Men. His initial roster included Dark Beast, Mystique, Mimic, and Omega. I feel like Dark Beast is such a great evil mutant that he generally just ends up being on almost every evil mutant X-Men team, but also I love Dark Beast, so I'm kind of fine with that. Although to be fair, Hank was giving him a run for his money recently when we had the previous incarnation of Hank as the main continuity one in the X-Men. And I wish Dark Beast was still alive though, so I at least had some way to rationally explain that whole version of Hank's behavior, who I thought might have been Dark Beast for a while, but then considering that Dark Beast is dead and everything else, and we also see proof of that, yeah, sadly that was not the case. Spider-Man Special Class is a great and overall underrated team. They were pulled together as the result of Storm finding some papers belonging to Logan after his death, mentioning the intention to put together a special class of mutants for Spider-Man to teach, made up of kids who were deemed most likely to become villains. Which honestly, for some of these people, I can't believe that he's like, these people, they could become villains. They could become villains, bub. They go on a couple of adventures together, but tragically wouldn't last too long as a team, but I just love the idea of Spider-Man teaching a group of mutants. The team included Ernst, No Girl, Rockslide, Hellion, Shark Girl, Glob Herman, and Eye-Boy, with quite a few of these younger mutants being some of my favorites. See if you can guess who is among them in the comments, and share with me some of your favorite mutants, please. The Extinction Team truly is a scary one. They came together in response to the fact that the Phoenix Force was believed to be returning. It was thought that the Phoenix Force wanted to merge with mutant Messiah Hope Summers and have her act as its host. While the X-Men were more optimistic about the Phoenix's return, the Avengers were not so much. As a result, the mutants deployed their own team to fight against the Avengers, but which was initially also created to defend the mutant island of Utopia and the world against extinction level threats, hence the name. Extinction Team. The Extinction Team included Cyclops, Magneto, Namor, Storm, Danger, Magic, Hope Summers, Emma Frost, and Colossus. Now, talk about a powerhouse lineup, that's wild. Never mind the Phoenix Force, this team in and of itself seems frightening enough to justify the Avengers' concern. If these mutants all got together and I was on the Avengers, I would also be worried. Assuming they don't trust the mutants having power too, which, yeah. Which, while at times both teams have been allied, has always seemed to remain a bit of a touchy subject to the Avengers, who kind of have a history of not playing well with other major superhero teams in the Marvel Universe. In fact, they also even have a history of not playing well with each other within their own team, so yeah. This team is what I like to call the other XSE. This team also spiraled out of a team that we talked about previously, Extreme X-Men. XSE here stands for the Extreme Sanctions Executive. Similar to the original XSE that Bishop was a part of in the future, this team is also like a military police force meant to maintain, and in some cases by force, ensure peace is kept between mutants and humans. By force. Storm was asked to create the team by the United Nations and eventually would increase its numbers by recruiting the rest of the X-Men, making this another government-sanctioned mutant team, kinda like X-Factor was, or at least, you know, X-Factor was to start. Team members have included Bishop, Cannonball, Magma, Rachel Summers, Psylocke, Rogue, Sage, Wolverine, X-23, and Gambit. What a fun team. I think it's such a fun team. I mean, when you consider that the sword bearers of Arakko were all pretty much kicking the champions of Krakoa's butts, we have to put them on this list, right? I mean, it's just too cool. While the Araki are newer when it comes to the mutant status quo and what we consider to be an X-Men team, considering we, you know, are just getting to know them still, they're still pretty new to the canon, and they're loosely tied to the X-Men through both their connection to Apocalypse and of course all being mutant. At the end of the day, they are still mutants, and I personally think we could kind of see them as X-Men, you know what I mean? Or at least X-Men adjacent, and for that reason, I think that we can include them on this list, which is really more about, you know, mutant teams than I would say specifically X-Men sister teams or X-Men rosters. I'm kind of keeping it a little bit more general here because there's just so many cool X-based teams. We just use the name X-Men because, it makes more sense in relation to Marvel Mutants, and it's more appealing than if we put, Marvel Mutants in the title of this video. It's more clickable, you dig? The Sword Bearers of Arakko didn't just best their Krakoan competitors in contests of combat and wit, but also in some of the more charismatic and honestly odd contests during the Ten of Swords or Otherworld tournament, also beating them in a dancing competition, a runway model one, and a scavenger hunt, to name a few of those seen in X-Force issue number 14 of the 2019 series.
We are kicking things off with A-Force, a force to be reckoned with. This team made Marvel history as it was their first ever all-female team. Marvel premiered this epic team-up in 2015's Secret Wars crossover storyline, so 2015 was the first all-female team. Marvel was founded in 1939. Marvel finally took a page out of the Incredibles' Elastigal's book, Leave the Saving of the World to the Men. I don't think so. The A-Force team members are as follows: Captain Marvel, Dazzler, Medusa, She-Hulk, Singularity, and Nico Monroe. This lineup is so incredible, I can't get over it. The team was formed piece by piece, but the majority of their battles were against antimatter. When Singularity appeared on Earth 616, so did antimatter, and this Singularity opposite is out to destroy her. Obviously, the girls don't let that happen, and he is dispersed into tiny particles. The team couldn't stay together forever, though they had a good run. The end of the wiki for this team cites some reasons as to why the team members left, and it goes from 0 to 100 so quick. It reads, "The team remained together for some time, but eventually disbanded, with Jennifer dropping superhero activities and Medusa going to space." See what I mean? It's like, oh, Jennifer just wanted a break? Cool, don't blame her. Then they hit you with Medusa left because she was going to space. Good for you, Queen, I guess. One woman who was offered a spot on the Super Squad that she likely didn't take was Tigra. Jessica Jones was allegedly hurt by her lack of invitation, which I completely understand. I would also love to receive an invite to this party. I am curious though, comment below which Avengers team invite you would accept. The Avengers have the unpleasant life experience of having their super identities stolen, and by some of their worst enemies no less. The Dark Avengers are exactly what they sound like, darker, eviler versions of the heroes we know and love. In the aftermath of the Skrull invasion, Norman Osborn is head of the 50 States Initiative, the Thunderbolt Initiative, and S.H.I.E.L.D. He was supposed to be reformed, but even then, I'm taking this away from him. I don't know why they gave it to him in the first place. During his time in these roles, he created the Dark Avengers. Some of the Dark Avengers were villains that took on the title of a major hero, so Venom pretended to be Spider-Man, Bullseye took on Hawkeye, you get it. This was done so the villains could gain more hero legitimacy in the public eye. People trusted the names, and plus it helped hide their criminal past, so it's a win-win situation for them. Osborn was also a part of the team. He did so wearing an Iron Man suit he painted to look similar to Captain America and called himself the Iron Patriot. The team was created in 2009 and was over in 2013. The West Coast Avengers might get some of the weirder villains to deal with, but they do handle them well. The team was created because the OG Avengers team couldn't handle how many members it had. There were always too many people sitting on the bench, and America's a huge country, so making another team of Avengers makes perfect sense. The West Coast Avengers have been around for about 40 years now, debuting in 1984. Hawkeye was deemed the leader of this team, and the team was a little on and off, disbanding for a while but ultimately reforming later. Because it is an official Avengers team, many heroes have joined over the years. Some of the OG members were Tigra, War Machine, and Mockingbird, and Hawkeye, of course. Other team member highlights include Moon Knight, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and The Thing. Plus, literally so many more people. Some people might not take West Coast Avengers as seriously as the Avengers, but they are still just as capable as the main team, defeating more minor threats like desert fixtures come to life and bigger problems like Kraven the Hunter and Doctor Doom. Everyone should pay attention to the Great Lakes Avengers, especially if you're someone who doesn't take life too seriously. The team is quirky and full of the type of characters you might be surprised to see Marvel create. A little controversial for one of them too, like Big Bertha, for example, a character that fights by modifying her body's weight and size to get stronger and become a bigger opponent. That's chill in the eyes of most. It's the way she has to get rid of said body after fights that make people cringe. She has to throw everything up, which many say is making fun of eating disorders. Not hard to see why. The other team's characters of past and present are slightly less controversial though. Mr. Immortal, you can guess what he has going for him? He's the leader, typically. Then there's Doorman, he's a teleporter. Flatman, again, self-explanatory, he's flat. Dinosaur was once on the team. She's a pink dinosaur person, iconic. Hawkeye and Mockingbird once worked with the team. A hero named Grasshopper joined and then promptly joined the afterlife. Squirrel Girl was interested at one point. The team has worked with many heroes, but I think their time with Deadpool has to be my favorite. They just really match each other's energy. Deadpool's style of writing and comedy just fit perfectly with the quirkiness of the team. The team was on board with the Superhuman Registration Act, and through signing it, they became the official government-sanctioned protectors of Wisconsin. And that is also how I learned Wisconsin is on the Great Lakes. For some reason, I thought it was a southern state. And before anyone calls me silly, I am from Canada, and I have not dedicated much time to finding Wisconsin on a map, which I do apologize for. I'm not just putting the Great Lakes Avengers on this list because Toronto is also on a Great Lake, but they are actually quite fun, so check them out if you do have the time. A team created for the most sensible of reasons, Ultimate 616 was created to stop threats before they hit Earth. If non-violent means can be used to stop those threats, even better. It's about time that a team of super people focused on prevention. The team debuted in 2015 and was proposed by Captain Marvel. She took her proposal to Black Panther, he liked it, he suggested Blue Marvel receive an invitation to join. Blue Marvel joined. Blue Marvel recommended Spectrum. Spectrum joined. Finally, Spectrum suggested Miss America, and Miss America joined too. Most members were chosen for the team because they had a good knowledge of the cosmos and its threats. Since the team was going to specialize in potential cosmic threats to Earth, it better be filled with people that understand cosmic threats. Sure enough, one of the team's first missions was one of the biggest cosmic threats of all, Galactus. Galactus's hunger, to be specific. You may or may not know Galactus eats planets. He doesn't necessarily want to, but he does need to do that. To his joy and the joy of every planet in the cosmos, the Ultimates fix this problem. They trap Galactus in his old incubator. Using the methods used to create Galactus, they accelerate the process and out comes a new version of him. Instead of destroying life, he is now a life bringer, even restoring planets he's eaten. The ultimate happy ending. Turns out, the Avengers we are familiar with weren't the first Avengers team Nick Fury created. Somehow, I feel supremely betrayed by this info, and I really don't have any personal stake in this. The 1950s Avengers team was created by Nick Fury at the order of President Eisenhower. The team was made up of Sabretooth, Kraven the Hunter, Dominic Fortune, Namora, Bloodstone, and Silver Sable. Others who have worked alongside or on the team are Blonde Phantom and Dum Dum Dugan. This Avengers team was super interesting to me because Nick, what are you doing? Quite a few of the people in this team are certified menaces to society, or at least have been to some of the most popular heroes in Marvel history. I guess they were right for the missions they went on, defeating Red Skull and his Yahtzee with an N Captain America. Their efforts were pretty much focused on just like defeating various bad guys that belonged to that group of people. Because the group did so much good defeating all those bad guys, when Nick disbanded the Avengers 1950, he pardoned all the past crimes of the team members. Controversial choice, but okay. The team operated in the 1950s but debuted in 2011. What happens when you mix the Avengers with the X-Men? You get the Avengers Unity Division. This Avengers team was created after the Avengers X-Men War. Captain America realized the divide between mutants and the Avengers was too wide, so he decided to create a team containing both groups to bridge that gap. There were quite a few heroes that joined the squad. The three leaders it had at one point or another were Captain America, Havoc, and Rogue. Other notable members include Beast, Human Torch, Scarlet Witch, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Vision, Wasp, and a whole lot more. The team's first problems came from Red Skull. Unsurprisingly, all Red Skull seems to do is bother people and be on the wrong side of history. Red Skull mainly caused issues this time by mind controlling and brainwashing powered people like Avalanche and Thor. The team has fought many battles and is still active. One of the more recent fights happened after the attack on the third Hellfire Gala. Steve and the surviving mutants came together to prevent the world from being destroyed by evil Hydra Steve and giving the X-Men a chance to get the upper hand on Orcus. everyone should start directing their attention to the Young Avengers, or if you're already there, stay there, because the Young Avengers might be joining the MCU sooner than we think, and we should be prepared. The reason I say this is because the new Marvel series, Agatha All Along, has confirmed that Wiccan will be in it, played by Joe Locke. Wiccan is part of the Young Avengers. Some other Young Avengers members have already made their on-screen debut, including Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye show, and Miss America in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and Wiccan's brother Tommy in WandaVision, of course, alongside Wiccan. The Young Avengers in the comics were formed by Iron Lad. He did this using the Avengers Failsafe program. It's designed to recruit the next generation of heroes. The team might be young, but they are powerful and charming and have taken on some major threats with success. It will be interesting to see how they make the jump onto the screen now. The movie has been confirmed, but filming is rumored to have not started just yet. The Avengers usually stand up for society, but they once tried to destroy it, but it isn't their fault, I guess. They did get their personalities magically flipped. The flipping didn't just affect them though. Some of the biggest villains in Marvel history suddenly became a team of good guys. I'm talking about the Astonishing Avengers. Created in 2014, the Astonishing Avengers might look deceiving, but I promise they fight for good. To get into why the team was created, Red Onslaught mind-controlled Iron Man into creating Sentinels to fight heroes that were designed with heroes' weaknesses in mind. Magneto created a team of villains to fight against Red Onslaught because he was just a common enemy and coming after the villains as well. Some of the villains recruited included Carnage, Doctor Doom, Hobgoblin, Sabretooth, and Enchantress, and more. During the epic battle between the heroes, villains, and Sentinels, Red Onslaught was defeated when Scarlet Witch and Doctor Doom casted a spell that inverted his personality. It defeated him, that's great, but the problem, the spell got a little out of control, just a little, and flipped everyone's personality, everyone on the battlefield that is. So now Magneto and co are the good guys and the heroes that we love are the bad guys. This is when Magneto and co become the Astonishing Avengers. Steve Rogers wasn't at the fight, so he was unaffected, thank God. A Cap that's as evil as he is righteous and good would collapse the world in a second, I fear, but Cap was able to Avengers assemble the team of now good villains to fight the evil heroes and help return them to normal. The good villains were so good, they even recorded a video that would clear the names and excuse the actions of the flipped heroes, saying they manipulated them against their will. That is so kind. Another spell is cast in the middle of the second big fight and everyone is sent back to normal. And finally, everyone should know, the Avengers. The most popular version has Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and the Hulk. This version of the team was made popular by the MCU and all its marketing and the wonderful acting performances. But what might come as a surprise to anyone who is more into the movies than into the comics is that the OG Avengers lineup was a bit different from the films. The original Avengers were Iron Man, the Hulk, Thor, Ant-Man, and the Wasp. So while Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't come into the movies until way after the first Avengers film, they were founding members back in the day. But it wasn't Scott Lang and Hope Pym's version, it was the first people that took on the role, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. Captain America did join for the fourth Avengers issue of the comics, but he wasn't there for the birth of the team the way that he was in the movies. The Avengers were actually the ones who found him in the ice, and he woke up and immediately threw hands with them, but they got over it though.
Number 10. X-Statix. X-Statix was a team created to be a replacement for the original X-Force after they seemingly sacrificed themselves. The team was founded by Spike Freeman, who wanted to have a public mutant team backed by the government. Even the original roster of X-Statix would quickly become casualties, despite being a newly formed team. Coach originally was the team leader, but X-Statix would eventually rebel against his leadership, because he was kind of a jerk to be honest, with members acting on behalf of their own motivations instead, and doing what they thought was best. X-Statix has had many different members over the years, as many of them died during their time serving on the team, which is kind of the whole joke of X-Statix. The roster has featured such members as Mr. Sensitive, Zeitgeist, Anarchist, Spike Freeman, Coach, Dead Girl, Dupe, You Go Girl, Gone Girl, Fatty, Rosa Lemper, The A, Vivisector, Bloke, El Guapo, Gin Genie, and Venus D. Milo, among others. Because like I said, a lot of them don't last very long. Number 9. Gamma Corps. The Gamma Corps are heroes and villains who have suffered gamma radiation that mutated their DNA. They were assembled to destroy the Hulk, armed with military weapons and trained by General John Riker, who also for a time acted as their leader in this mission. In fact, they were made to believe that the whole reason that they were DNA mutated was kind of because of the Hulk, so that's why they were all united against the Hulk at that time. During the events of World War Hulk, they would actually side with the Hulk though, and decide to pursue and hunt the members of the Illuminati, after learning that their individual predicaments were actually not the fault of the Hulk really at all. The members of the team were all quite specific to the Gamma Corps and featured Gray, Griffin, Mess, Mr. Gideon, and Prodigy. But not mutant David Elaine Prodigy. This Prodigy was instead Timothy Wilkerson, who initially believed that he was artificially aged and mutated thanks to the leader's DNA. But that was not true. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists where I talk about obscure Marvel teams that, you know, deserve a little bit of praise and maybe are stronger than you think they are, be sure to hit that like button and comment below to let us know what other teams you'd like to see on a list like this. Number 8. Nasty Boys. The Nasty Boys have to be one of my favorite lesser known villain groups of all time. So you know, I cannot pass up an opportunity to mention how awesome and how powerful they are. The Nasty Boys were Mr. Sinister's group of henchmen following his Marauders group. The field leader for the team is Ruckus, whose mutant power allows him to absorb sound around him and use his vocal cords to project it back out as a powerful concussive sound-based blast. Initially, the Nasty Boys were used in a plot to kill the Scarlet Witch, and later on in a plot to kill Malice. Their roster has included such members as One Man Team, Multiple Man, Hairbag, Ramrod, Gorgeous George, and of course Slab. Number 7. Power Pack. The Power Pack is a team who many see as being less powerful or strong because, well, they started out as kids. But we've seen from looking into the future the potential for this team and its members when it comes to their power levels. And just because it's a younger team, it doesn't mean that they don't deserve your respect and don't deserve to be hyped, especially since they were created in part by one of the Marvel greats, Louise Simonson. The Power Pack first appeared in their own series in Power Pack issue number 1 in 1984 and were created by Simonson, June Brigman, and Bob Vycek. The team members include the Power Siblings, Alex aka Zero G, Katie aka Energizer, Julie aka Light Speed, and Jack aka Mass Master, and have also featured Lord Kofi Whiteman, cousin to the Alefire Whiteman, who first bestowed powers on the Power Siblings, and of course Franklin Richards, who was also on the team for a little bit. Number 6. Hellions. I feel like this is a list that really was made for me specifically to talk about because I just love gushing over teams and characters who are lesser known but still are so amazingly strong and deserve to be acknowledged. Case in point, the Hellions. The Hellions is a team that originally started out as Emma Frost's own mutant team and more recently was given over to Mr. Sinister to manage in terms of the team title. Technically these are kind of like two different Hellions teams, but I like to acknowledge all the history of a team name because I think that's important. Just like we have two Marauders that are quite different, but the Marauders' name is still connected to both, if that makes sense to you. On Krakoa, Sinister's Hellions was made up of the more volatile mutants on the island and was intended to act as sort of a rehabilitation group for them, where they could work out their frustrations via less desirable or perhaps marketable missions. The most recent roster included Psylocke aka Quanon, Nanny, Orphan Maker, Grey Crow, Empath, Wildchild, and Havoc. And honestly, I miss them so much. Please bring the Hellions back. It ended really sadly and they deserve better. Number 5. Agents of Atlas. Agents of Atlas is another team that really deserves more love and respect just based on its leaders and its roster. It's filled with powerhouses, whether we're talking about the original team or the Asia-based team, and currently the leader of this team I believe is Jimmy Woo, my guy! I love Jimmy Woo in the MCU and in the comics. The character has actually been around since the 1950s, so yeah, been around for a while. Members for Agents of Atlas have included Shang-Chi, Miss Marvel, Namora, Venus, Uranian, who was once known as Marvel Boy, Arrow, Io, Giant Man, White Fox, Swordmaster, and Silk. Number 4. Gamma Flight. You might know Alpha Flight, but do you know Gamma Flight? Gamma Flight is the Alpha Flight space program team. This team formed due to the disappearance of the Hulk, aka Bruce Banner. Gamma Flight was initially called together by Avenger and Alpha Flight commander at the time, Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, to act as a task force to help locate Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. And locate him they did, also being pulled through to the below place after a Brian Banner possessed absorbing man absorbed enough gamma radiation to open up a green door during the time period of Immortal Hulk. Gamma Flight's roster has included such members as Walter Langowski, at one point known as Sasquatch, Puck, Absorbing Man, Titania, Dr. McGowan, Rick Jones, and Doc Sasquatch. Number 3. Exterminators. Another secret powerhouse team that is one of my all-time favorites, and which I don't think we give enough love to on this channel, is the Exterminators. This team was primarily made up of young mutants who were saved by the earlier incarnation of the X-Factor team, back when that was a government-funded team and was kind of like the X-Men, the old X-Men reformed again. Standout members for Exterminators throughout the years have included Rusty Collins, aka Fire Fist, made popular by his very different but memorable appearance and adaptation in the Deadpool film franchise, Cable, Boom Boom, Richter, Whiz Kid, Lila Cheney, Cannonball, and of course, in the more recent team roster, Cora of the Burning Heart from Morocco, who was also so cool. The Exterminators first appeared in the 80s in their own self-titled series. Number 2. The Sisterhood. One of my favorite lesser known but immensely powerful teams in the Marvel Universe is the Sisterhood, also known as the Sisterhood of Mutants. Part of the reason why they're referred to as just the Sisterhood though, is that technically not all of their members are mutants, so don't be confused by the name. However, all of their members have been women who are or have generally been acknowledged as supervillains, though not all of them even are supervillains, so yeah. The team was founded and led originally by Madeline Pryor. Throughout the years, members have included Lady Deathstrike, Celine Gallio, aka the Black Queen, Typhoid Mary, Lady Mastermind, the other female mastermind named Martinique, Psylocke, Quanon, Spiral, Enchantress, and Brightco. Number 1. God Squad. The God Squad is about as powerful as they sound, but still, they remain one of the lesser known teams in the Marvel Universe. I was kinda hoping we'd get like a God Squad reference in Thor Love and Thunder, but sadly, no God Squad. Maybe that was one of the things that got cut, who knows. The team was originally assembled by the Council of Godheads and first came together during the events of Secret Invasion. The team first formed in the Incredible Hercules issue 117 in 2008. The original roster included Adam the Demogorge, Snowbird, the Eternal Ajax, and Amatsu Mikaboshi, later known as the Chaos King. The roster would go on to include such impressive members as Silver Surfer, Galactus, Circe, also of the Eternals, Thor, Amadeus Cho, and of course, Hercules himself. There are X-Men, the Justice League, the Avengers, the Titans,
and then there's everybody else. Back in 2009, Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four takes a little trip to the inhuman city of Atalan, searching for the Infinity Gems. The massive teleporting inhuman bulldog Lockjaw happens to stumble on the Mind Gem and is granted telepathy. Using this telepathy to read Mr. Fantastic's mind, he decides to use his other power to go and round up the other gems. Along the way, Lockjaw runs into Hairball the cat belonging to Speedball, the dragon Lockheed, the companion of Kitty Pryde, Redwing, Falcon's pet Falcon, Throg, a frog with the powers of Thor, Zabu, the saber-toothed tiger ally of the Savage Lands Khazar, and Miss Lion, May Parker's dog. Despite the fact that this team are literally just super pets, they decide to team up as the Pet Avengers and they go off to assemble the Infinity Gems as part of a 4-part limited series. A more recent Earth 616 version of the team from 2021 consisted of Lockjaw, Throg, and Lockheed still, but this time accompanied by Doctor Strange's ghost dog Bats and Hugin and Munin, the Ravens of Thor, formerly belonging to Odin.
This X-Men team and roster, the Extreme X-Men, marked the return of Chris Claremont to the X-Men in a full-time capacity. Extreme X-Men Volume 1 is a series that started in 2001 and ran until 2004. It was a team that featured my girl Rogue as leader, who is soon going to be the leader of the X-Men again, or a X-Men team, which you know, I'm all about because I love Rogue. The original Extreme X-Men roster features Beast, Psylocke, Bishop, Storm, Sage, and Thunderbird. Lifeguard, Gambit, and Slipstream were also added into the mix throughout the series. This team was originally brought together to find Destiny's premonition-filled diaries, but of course along the way was distracted by many other imminent threats, as happens when you're an X-Men team.
There have been several incarnations of the Outsiders in DC Comics, and most have been Batman or Batman family related, with one team even being led by Nightwing. The first ever version of the team came in 1983 after Batman gained a rather uncomfortable standing with the Justice League. The team had some notable moments, particularly because of its new characters like Katana and Geoforce. Batman and the Justice League would patch things up, and so he left the team to continue operating without him. During that time, they were operating in Markovia in order to receive funding and then moved to Los Angeles before they reunited with Batman and gained access to a Los Angeles Batcave. The last version of the team came following Batman Rip in 2008, where Alfred put together the team with each member representing a part of Batman's legacy, but obviously Batman actually never really bites the dust permanently, so that didn't really last.
Cape Sync is a superhero team, or really a superhero agency I guess I should say, from the same world as Invincible. In fact, as early on as issue number 8 of the Invincible series, you can see some of their members featured in the background. Not only that, but they also ended up getting their own spin-off comic as well. Although I believe it only lasted 3 issues total. It was a miniseries. You know, that's how it goes sometimes. Though there were Cape Sync backup stories I believe in certain issues of Invincible as well, so if you really like it you can also check those out, which also told the team's story. The miniseries centered initially around Bolt, who welcomes a new recruit to the team as his partner. The team is more like a business and kind of seems to operate kind of like a superpowered police station or a police office. People even get paid and everything. Kid Thor is the new kid in town who joins up with Bolt. Bolt, we learn initially wanted his name to be Black Samson, but obviously that name was already taken by the Guardians of the Globe members, so alas, it was unavailable when he joined up with Cape Sync, and that's why he's Bolt.
The team known as Force Works was formed by Iron Man, who had left the Avengers due to a dispute as to the role of superhumans. Force Works maintained the outlook that rather than being a reactionary force, they should try to preempt both natural and man-made disasters. The team was initially composed of Iron Man, US Agent, Spider-Woman, Julian Carpenter, Scarlet Witch, and Wonder Man, which in my opinion is such an interesting group of heroes. But by the end of their first mission, Wonder Man was thought to be deceased at the hands of the invading Kree, and shortly after the alien Sentry took his place, only to be completely forgotten when the team disbanded. The team fought in several skirmishes, but really only lasted about 2 years. The characters were mainly reabsorbed into the ranks of the Avengers afterwards.
I like to refer to this next one as the other XSE team. This team also spiraled out of a team that we talked about previously on this list, Extreme X-Men. XSE here stands for the Extreme Sanctions Executive. Similar to the original XSE that Bishop was a part of in the future, or in his future, this team is also like a military police force, meant to maintain and in some cases enforce peace is kept between mutants and humans. Storm was asked to create the team by the United Nations and eventually would increase its numbers by recruiting the rest of her X-Men, making this another government-sanctioned mutant team, like X-Factor was originally. Team members have included Bishop, Cannonball, Magma, Rachel Summers, Psylocke, Rogue, Sage, Wolverine, X-23, and Gambit. Now that's a team.
Look, even though the book was cancelled in 1978 after a mere 17 issues, and many people, including the heroes on the team, look at it as an embarrassment, the Champions roster is actually pretty darn capable. With a team of 2 founding X-Men, Iceman and Angel, combined with heavy hitters Hercules, the Spirit of Vengeance Ghost Rider, and being led by Natasha Romanoff Black Widow, the Champions were aptly named and could kick some serious butt when given the opportunity. The team fought familiar villains like Titanium Man and the Griffin, but even began to develop their own rogues gallery with new villains such as Rampage and Swarm, and they even got an addition to the team in the form of Black Goliath before the book was cancelled. The team was intended to reform in 2007, only they were forced to rename as The Order since Marvel had lost the trademark for the Champions over the years.
You've heard of Green Lanterns, maybe you've even heard of Yellow Lanterns or Red Lanterns or even Black Lanterns, but how about Blue Lanterns? Yeah, that's a color too. Blue Lanterns have only made a few appearances in the new continuity, and even before that, during the New Earth days of DC, they weren't necessarily the most frequent to appear. Mainly, I feel like people just know Green Lanterns, whose color of course represents willpower. To be a Green Lantern, you must be strong in will. So, what's blue about? What's the whole blue thing? To be a Blue Lantern, you must be full of hope. So beautiful. I feel like I could be a Blue Lantern, honestly. If Green Lanterns are like the intergalactic police, Blue Lanterns are like therapists or peacekeepers or priests maybe. They have long been allies to the Green Lanterns, and their powers actually provide a boost to fellow Green Lanterns when they're nearby. Pretty cute. This is because their whole focus is of course on belief and hope, having faith in those around them. As such, many of their names start with a title like Saint, Sister, or Brother. I'd definitely be Sister. Sister Amanda, Blue Lantern. Sister McKnight.
Kind of like the Champions, DC's Detroit League is another team that gets a real bad rap, but actually has a pretty stacked roster when you take a closer inspection. After Aquaman, a charter member of the original Justice League, decided that the Justice League members were too interested in their own individual problems to be part of an effective team, he used his position to disband the team and establish the Detroit League. This new team, with half old-timers and half newbies, was largely used to add some diversity to the DC heroic lineup. Whether it achieved that or not is up to the reader. Made up of League mainstays like Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, Zatanna, and Elongated Man, along with newbies like Vibe, Gypsy, Vixen, and Commander Steel, it's often considered the worst roster of the team, but if you actually look at the roster and do some critical thinking, you'll find that it's very powerful indeed. Martian Manhunter and Zatanna alone are absolute powerhouses. Despite the jokes, Aquaman or even Commander Steel both make really effective tanks, and the rest of the team is quite capable in a variation of different situations.
The God Squad is about as powerful as they sound, but they still remain one of the lesser known teams in the Marvel Universe. The team was originally assembled by the Council of Godheads, and first came together during the events of Secret Invasion. The team first formed in the Incredible Hercules issue number 117 in 2008. The original roster included Adam the Demogorge, Snowbird, the Eternal Ajax, and Amatsu Mikaboshi, later known as, of course, the Chaos King. The roster would go on to include such impressive members as Silver Surfer, Galactus, Circe, Thor, Amadeus Cho, and of course, Hercules himself.
The series One Star Squadron debuted in 2022. It featured unpopular heroes combining their limited star power to create heroes for you. It's like a mix between Uber, Cameo, and 911. For these C-list heroes, the C stands for capitalism. People use the Heroes for You app for on-demand hero assistance. Situations you may need a hero for include, but are not limited to, alien attacks, transporting sensitive information, birthdays, or getting your kitty out of a tree. No job is too big or small, they will answer the call. I love this idea. Trust and believe if I were a D or C-list superhero, I would be on here. I also think this idea is so clever from the writer's point of view. They were able to bring back a bunch of characters, so many fun characters all at once. The app and agency was led by Red Tornado, but other heroes you could request were the Heckler. I would request him. His power is literally just being annoying. Just send him to that person you mildly dislike. Takes care of it. Let me know down below who you would sick the Heckler on. Minuteman is available. He has a bunch of powers, but only for 1 minute at a time. There is Flying Fox, who is known for magic things like invisibility and illusions, good for a birthday. There are a bunch more heroes too. That's just a taste of all the options. I just love this idea. Literally all these heroes just deserve better. I have a soft spot for silly superheroes. What can I say? I like to laugh as much as I like the serious stuff. Section 8 made me giggle, specifically this one guy on the superhero team. His name is Defenestrator. Defenestrator from now on will be Mr. D. He literally just goes around with a window and smashes it over villains' heads. In all fairness, defenestration is literally the act of throwing someone out a window. I'm obsessed. Mr. D started out a villain but was recruited to the Hero Squad Section 8 by Hero 6-Pack. The team is made up of just wacky heroes with wacky names. We have Dog Welder. He welds dogs. I'm being so serious. There's Bueno Excelente. That is literally good, excellent in Spanish. Phlegm Gem. He has blinding phlegm, gross. Friendly Fire, he is the most traditional, he shoots energy blasts. And then there is Jean de Baton, he fights with, take a guess, a baton, and he is French. The entire thing is so camp and also a tiny bit problematic, which is probably why it hasn't picked up much steam. The Metal Men were created by Dr. William Magnus in the New Earth DC universe. The team is an interesting idea, metals with human-like bodies and the capacity to form thoughts and personalities. Dr. William created the Metal Men using his invention, the responsometer. It's a microcomputer that can give metal life. The Metal Men are made up of 5 male metals, gold, tin, mercury, lead, and iron, and 1 female metal, platinum. The team is such a specific brand of hero, so they fought a specific brand of villain too, monsters that appeared due to odd scientific research. The team has fought alongside Batman. Initially they were arrested by Batman because they were framed for something, but their names were cleared eventually. After getting their names cleared, they took down a bunch of evil robots together. The nice thing about the metal heroes is they can literally be remade whenever, as long as Dr. William has his microcomputer and a bit of the metal heroes can be brought back. The metals can also be combined to create the formidable foe alloy. Here's the thing, I spend time on the internet, clearly, and I'm also just a girl, so I will see these videos of people personifying different inanimate things like apps and countries and cars. So I think now is really the time to push the metal men. Inanimate objects given life are in right now, trust me. The challengers of the unknown have an interesting origin story. They were a bunch of guys on a plane that were flying to go be guests on a radio show called Heroes, later changed to a TV show. They were above average guys though. One was considered a master of skin diving, another a daredevil working in the circus, an Olympic wrestling champion, and trained jet pilot and war hero. Just quite a mix of people. Of course, the plane they were in went down and the Fab Four of course survived. After the crash, they all have that wow, we almost died moment, and they decided that they are all living on borrowed time and that they should challenge the unknown together. Challenging the unknown really is what these guys did. They were also a for-hire service too. They got hired to open Pandora's box. Pandora's box is something you famously should not open. However, they were offered $1 million, not saying I would do it, but I get it. These guys start kind of taking on jobs that are too out there for others or too hard. They worked with the Pentagon of all places. One member loses their sight along the way, so a different member gives them an eyeball. They go through it. They had created their home base in a mountain. The personification of evil comes by and blows it up. At a certain point, the team really just can't catch a break. Eventually, there are new team members, a games designer, a physicist, a NASCAR driver, and a commercial pilot. What I think is cool about this particular DC team are the people on the team are just people. They have semi-regular jobs and just decided to start conquering challenges despite not receiving any superpowers. The Sea Devils, like the Challengers and Batman, were just regular people doing extraordinary things. They appeared in Showcase issue 27 in 1960 but got their own series the next year. The group was made of 4 people. Dane Dorrance was the leader. The other members were his girlfriend Judy Walton, Judy's younger brother Nicky Walton, and friend Biff Bailey. The group spent most of their time underwater, of course. They spent a lot of time living every ocean-obsessed kid's dream. They fought sea monsters and discovered underwater kingdoms. Like truly, if I was guaranteed to never drown, I would join this crew so fast. Spending so much time with aquatic life and fighting in the sea, the group also fought for the sea on land. They are environmentalists and are suggested to maybe be a bit extreme at times with their methods in the New 52 reboot, but they remain allies to Aquaman. The duality of the universe being manifested in human form has been done so many times, and yet it always hits. Hawk and Dove are another version of this. They were inspired by the political climate of the 1960s, with the characters debuting in 1968. People that were more in favor of war were often referred to as hawks, and the dove is commonly a symbol of peace. So from that, we get the aggressive hawk and the level-headed dove. In the DC universe, the Lords of Chaos and Order decided to bestow powers on a set of brothers, Hank and Don Hall, making them effectively War and Peace. They wore matching outfits, one was red and the other blue. The pair worked well together as Hawk often acted without thinking and Dove would think without action. Hawk was shoot first, ask questions later kind of vibe, whereas Dove made sure to provide the compassion and solutions that didn't require physical conflict. A perfect balance that was unfortunately thrown out of balance when Dawn passed on during the Crisis on Infinite Earths fiasco. It would be disastrous if just War was out here on their own, so a replacement had to be found, and that was Dawn Granger. The Lords chose her because she was level-headed and willing to find compromise and see reason and other perfect peaceful qualities. After the loss of his brother, naturally Hawk took some time getting used to his new counterpart, but eventually accepted her. The characters of Hawk and Dove have plenty of potential, and yet their solo series are never that long. They got some credit on the screen. They made their animated debut in Justice League Unlimited in 2004 episode, then made their live-action debut in 2018's Titans. I am about to put up missing posters for this team because honestly, where did you come from? Where did you go? Justicia is the hero team of Mexico. Justicia is Spanish for justice, the Justice League of Mexico basically. They first appeared in Suicide Squad, Most Wanted, El Diablo, and Amanda Waller, 5. They were in 6 too, but then goodbye, I guess. The team is led by El Dorado. He's almost a Mexican version of Superman. He can fly and he's really buff. He is also capable of teleporting and minor telepathy. He also really looks like Miguel from Into the Spider-Verse. Anyway, there are 3 other members on the team. Akrara, a skilled martial artist and acrobat that wears a Mayan artifact that gives her teleportation abilities. Then we have El Muerto, an undead hero, which makes him hard to hurt the way you might hurt someone who's alive. And finally, we have E-Man. He wears a suit of armor that gives him superior strength. There are some connections between this team and the Justice League. El Muerto used to idolize Superman, and E-Man received a scholarship from Wayne Enterprises. E-Man and Batman also share similar parent trauma. Each individual hero has had a handful of appearances, it's just the team that hasn't come up much. I think they are neat and should get more chances to show off together. So now we have shed some light on the MIA superhero team for Mexico, now we are heading to look at the main team for Japan. Big science action. The founding members were Boss Bozozuko, he had a flaming head and a bike. Cosmo Racer was an alien android that required specific crystals to power his interstellar traveling. Goriko is a projection that comes from the mind of a young Japanese girl that is currently existing in a sensory deprivation tank. Hammer Suit Zero X is a monster armor made of sturdy metal and has drills for weapons. Junior Waveman is the Japanese version of the Sea Devils mentioned earlier, but this time there are 8 people. The solar physicist known as Rising Sun is on the team as well. A Japanese stuntman known by his hero name Sunburst was on the team but perished in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Finally, Ultimon, a hero dedicated to fighting giant monsters. Since its founding, the team has integrated some new members, and throughout history, big science action has saved Japan from many threats. The team might not be out as much anymore because after Final Crisis, the government confined the Super Squad to their base. We are about to get into the team that was originally published by Image Comics, later DC. The team is Wetworks. Wetworks is an actual term meaning work involving assassination, so you can probably guess the vibe. They are a covert operations team in the Wildstorm universe. Their leader is Jackson Dane. Technically, the original covert op team name was Team 7. The team was sent out to raid this cave, but the cave was already raided when they got there, except for these tubes filled with gold liquid. The team had a lot of remote controlled weapons on them that happened to start a countdown to detonate while they were inside. Then everything goes wrong all at once. The tubes get shot, the liquid gets on these people and surrounds them, and then the explosives go off. But it turns out the liquid acted like protective armor because it was symbiotes. Adding a sim to someone automatically makes them cooler, but you know what makes them even cooler? When they fight vampires. This team has been running across Eastern Europe making sure they can't remake Twilight. They had lost members along the way and even temporarily stopped because of it. They regrouped after the world cataclysm and were called to Utah, of all places. Turns out someone was trying to make demonite vampire hybrids. In the ensuing fight, the Sims all mutated and the Wetworks team started getting new powers. The new power played a key role in stopping the vampire hybrids from existing. Atomic Fallout seemed to be a popular origin story for heroes. The heroes of Lalor are no different. The heroes of Lalor are a team of 5 heroes. Their parents lived close enough to the site of the atomic fallout on their world that their genes were altered, resulting in their children all being born with powers. The kids were sent away from the planet and decided to come to Earth. They were tricked, bamboozled, lied to by this guy named Dr. Martin King. He made the young heroes think that the Legion of Superheroes were criminals. Why? So he could avenge his brother's death. Because this random group of people from outer space started attacking them, the Legion also thought the heroes of Lalor were the bad guys. They fought for a bit, but soon realized that they were both fighting with good intentions and became friends instead. Unfortunately, one of the Lalor members did pass away, Beast Boy. Not the one you're thinking of, a different guy. You know how I know the heroes of Lalor deserve better? They used one of the characters' name for another hero, and that guy is eons more popular. Their powers are even similar. The Lalor Beast Boy has the power to turn into any animal, and the more popular Beast Boy does the same thing. There were 5 heroes on the team. The others were Gas Girl, she can change her body into any gas. There is a Volvo Lad, he can make his body into any point in human evolution, so he can become an ape or the kind of man humanity can't even imagine yet. Life Last can create living creatures from inanimate objects, Beauty and the Beast core. And finally, Duplicate Boy, he can duplicate any hero's superpowers. Eventually, the surviving 4 make it back to their home planet. They even gained a new member, Splitter, or Arm Fall Off Boy.
Marvel is full of all kinds of teams, both good and bad, extraordinary and subtle, popular and not so popular. Today, I think it's high time we shine a spotlight on our favorite teams of losers and rebels who should be treated better. Now, when we say that these teams deserve better, there really isn't a better example than the Harvesters. After the events of the superhuman Civil War, Iron Man created the 50-State Initiative. This was essentially an initiative to set up government-funded superhero teams throughout each of the United States. Some of these teams were already established groups of heroes, but for some states, completely new groups composed of local heroes were formed. The Sunflower State, Kansas, gained its team in the form of the Harvesters. This new team was made up of pretty strange heroes that we hadn't seen before. Topeka, who led the team, was basically just a super soldier. Then there was Pioneer, who had the power of the plains, as she put it. Sunflower, who was literally a human sunflower who got stronger under direct sunlight and appeared to have a high degree of durability. There was Meadowlark, who could fly and sing to hypnotize people. And then, of course, there was Grainbelt, whose body was literally made of grain that he could control. Why did they deserve better? Well, this team's only claim to fame came when they faced off against a zombie clone of the hero Hyperion, who is basically the Marvel equivalent of Superman, and he utterly destroyed each member of this team. They did not stand a single chance. Only Pioneer just barely made it out alive by raising up an entire herd of undead cattle and trampling the zombie Hyperion, who then succumbed to mad cow disease, and I wish I made that up. Now, most of you nerds have heard about the Skrulls. This alien race has been a nuisance in Marvel Comics ever since their first appearance in Fantastic Four #2. The Skrull members who fought the Four at this time ended up hypnotized into believing they were actually cows by Reed Richards, and they shapeshifted into and were stuck as cows. What I'm sure Reed did not anticipate is that these Skrull cows ended up finding themselves in a butcher and turned into beef. This Skrull beef was then consumed by regular old Earthlings. Now, while a good majority of people did not survive the Skrull cow meat, a select few did, and had the Skrull's adaptable DNA code transferred into their human cells, resulting in a condition called Skrullivoria-induced Skrullophobia. The infected individuals gained the ability to shapeshift like a Skrull, but also developed an intense irrational fear and hatred of the Skrull, and they came together to form the aptly named Skrull Kill Crew. Fueled by their irrational impulses to destroy the Skrull, they helped prevent the Skrulls from attacking other people, but they even faced off against other villains like Baron von Strucker. It's just a really unfortunate way to gain a superpower. Now, X-Force is the awesome Black Ops X-Men related team with characters like Domino and Cable and Cannonball and Wolverine and Warpath, and it's awesome. But for a short little while, it was decidedly not awesome. In the year 2000, X-Force got cancelled and rebranded into what eventually would become X-Statix. This team isn't exactly one of the premier mutant teams in the world, and that's putting it lightly. The original team was made up of the mutants Zeitgeist, who has the power of Super Puke, La Nuit with Dark Force powers, Battering Ram, who was a big purple goat looking man, Plasm, who had liquidy water powers, Gin Genie, who could create earthquakes depending on how much she drank, and Sluck, who was basically a squid man. But all of those original members, minus 3 of them who I didn't mention, and Sluck, who was blown up by a tank in South Africa, all got completely decimated in spectacularly embarrassing fashion during a rescue mission to save a pop music boy band named Boys R Us. Turns out their demise was actually planned by the team's manager, coach, and its leader, Zeitgeist, because they thought a team with a constantly changing roster and high body count would gain them fan interest. The team managed to go on with pretty horrible results. There have been 28 members of Ecstatics who have passed away over their history, with only 9 surviving. 9. Okay, so we have Ecstatics, we have X-Force, we have the X-Men of course, and we have a whole handful of other X-branded teams, but some mutants aren't considered presentable to the outside world because whatever their mutation is, it has been deemed either gross or terrifying by the wider Marvel human society, or they are mutants who are just bitter about being persecuted for being mutants. This group banded together, named themselves the Morlocks, and headed down into the Morlock tunnels beneath New York City. Already, without anything happening to them other than their mutations, these characters have it rough and deserve better. But then, to add flame to the fire, the Morlocks undergo tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, with one of the worst being the event known as the Mutant Massacre, where Mr. Sinister and the Mutant Gambit put together a group of villainous characters and led them into the tunnels to commit, well, a massacre. And it was all because another villain, Dark Beast, created some of these Morlocks, and Mr. Sinister didn't like that. Sometimes it takes the smallest of things to bring people together, and while that may sound like an extremely beautiful sentiment, I'm saying it in relation to the villainous team known as the Headmen, who it seems came together because each of their powers revolves around their heads in one way or another, and it's honestly kind of unsettling in my opinion. Putting their heads together, figuratively, not literally, these scientists sought out world domination, bringing them into conflict with the Defenders, She-Hulk, and Spider-Man. The quartet consisted of Arthur Nagin, their leader, who had his head transplanted onto the body of a gorilla, Ruby Thursday, who replaced her own head with an organic computer capable of changing shape, Gerald Morgan, aka Shrunken Bones, who accidentally shrank his own skeleton, including his skull, so he basically just had really baggy skin, and Chandu the Mystic's head had been transplanted by Nagin onto a number of different bodies throughout his time, making him quite the versatile little guy. Not gonna lie. The Champions of Los Angeles were the first West Coast-based superhuman team. They formed like all great superhero teams do, with several heroes happening to just meet by chance against a great threat. In this case, that threat took the form of the Greek god of death, Pluto. The group consisted of two former X-Men, Angel and Iceman, the Greek god of strength, Hercules, who I swear is super underappreciated, Johnny Blaze, the original Ghost Rider, and the Russian spy Black Widow, who led the team. After defeating Pluto, the Champions of Los Angeles, or just the Champions, decided to stick together as a team. Warren Worthington III, aka Angel, was the wealth behind the group, and with his money they bought their own Quinjet and named it the Champ Jet, which I find hilarious because over time, the members of this team started to become embarrassed by the entire idea of the team as a whole. Both Iceman and Angel called it an embarrassment and a nightmare because they had no idea what they were doing. But still, they had a few more adventures working with X-Force, and they had some additions to the roster with Black Goliath, who aided the team in a scientific aspect, and another Russian female hero, Darkstar, who was originally there to capture Black Widow but ended up changing sides instead. I'm gonna be honest, I kinda love the lineup of this team. I'd read it if they came back. Now you remember how the Headmen all came together based on their head-related powers? Well, I'll do you one better. How about the Death Throws, whose powers and names all have something to do with commonly throwing stuff. The leader, Ringleader, threw together teammates Bombshell, Knick-Knack, Oddball, Tenpin, and Throwdown into a group that honestly works really well together, juggling their various different throwing instruments between each other. They worked so well together, in fact, that they were even hired to and succeeded in breaking the villain Crossfire out of prison. However, once they had taken Crossfire to their HQ, they discovered that Crossfire was broke. His assets had all been impounded, and he had lost all of his useful connections. These guys did battle with characters like Captain America, Crossfire, Hawkeye, and even Loki, of all people, who stopped the group from robbing the Big Top Casino in Las Vegas. Their Marvel wiki even lists their origins as, and I quote, a joint effort to perform criminal and mercenary acts while using juggling expertise. I honestly can't even believe this group of villains exists and that they haven't been able to get Bullseye into their ranks. What the heck's up with that? Okay, of all the teams on this list, I think that Horticulture may be my favorite. For starters, they look so cool, but then you find out that it's actually just a bunch of older women between the ages of 64 to 81 who are all expert botanists and want to bring Earth back to a more pristine time when it had about 7 billion less people on it, and it was ruled by plant life. I just love how they use their regular names, and the names just kinda suit their ages and interests in plants. We got Augusta Bromes, Lily Lamus, Edith Scutch, and Opal Vetiver. Gosh! What a bunch of winners. But yes, that's right, these ladies want to basically exterminate most of the Earth's human population and bring plants back to the forefront, specifically flowers. This goal brings them into conflict with the X-Men in 2019's X-Men number 3. Beyond biological modifications believed to have been made to themselves, the women of Horticulture are experts at manipulating the environment to suit their extinction agenda, and they're also computer programmers selling software to Orcus to monitor Krakoan gateways. They did get pretty handily walloped though, so Second to last, as part of kid-centric Star Comics, Marvel decided decided to release a team composed of animal superheroes, which is cool. But the difference here is this team of animal heroes were cybernetically enhanced super intelligent animals with absolutely massive arsenals and awesome exoskeletons, which is much cooler. And they fought for the environment, which is even cooler. This team was made up of Boomer, a kangaroo, Lionheart, a lion, Soar/Slipstream, an eagle, Reckless, who was a bear, and Dr. Echo/Surfstreak, who was a dolphin. Does it sound kind of ridiculous? Sure, but it is awesome. This team was co-created by Multicore, spearheaded by Dr. Randall Pierce, and it was all part of Weapons 2, which itself was the second project after Weapon 1. Who would have thought? Also known as Project Rebirth, also known as the project that created Captain America. Now some of you may know that these projects were part of a bigger thing called Weapons Plus, who would eventually go on to create Man-Thing, Luke Cage, Nuke, Typhoid Mary, Phantom X, the Stepford Cuckoos, and of course, Wolverine. So most people know that they aren't exactly a good group of people. While their original series was cancelled after only a few issues in Wolverine and Captain America Weapons Plus #1, those two heroes investigated an abandoned Weapons Plus site where they found the team kept in hibernation tanks full of liquid. The bear, Reckless, was freed from his container but attacked the duo, resulting in his passing. And last up today, first ever introduced in 1989's West Coast Avengers Volume 2, number 46, the Great Lake Avengers formed after Mr. Immortal put out an ad in the local personals seeking men and women of action to join forces and form a team of super friends. This managed to catch the attention of Avengers members Hawkeye and Mockingbird. In order to help them out, the Great Lakes Avengers were trained by the duo, and the rest was history. The team is made up of pretty much Z-list heroes, with the main lineup usually consisting of Mr. Immortal, Doorman, Big Bertha, and Flatman. Naturally, as a sort of running joke throughout Marvel Comics since their introduction, the team goes up against some of the zaniest villains and situations I have ever seen, and they don't do particularly well. But I'll be darned if I don't have a soft spot for this team. The funny thing about most joke characters and teams is that they almost always end up actually doing some pretty extraordinary things from time to time.